latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for July 9th. Looking at the world tropics today, fairly quiet apart from the obvious, which is Tropical Storm Elsa. Of course, the ex-hurricane, still tropical as it marauds through the east coast of the United States up to 50 miles per hour as of the update time. Could be an outside chance of getting back to 60 as it moves up the US east coast. 39 storms have formed so far this year. And it's day 39 of hurricane season. Elsa over the mid-Atlantic, entering Virginia at the time of this broadcast. I say that because it's moving very quickly, and this will probably be out of date rather soon as it moves on towards the northeast and will possibly still affect the New England area, which is still under a tropical storm warning. One area of interest in the eastern Pacific has sprung up with a hopeful 10% chance of development on day 55 of hurricane season. If it did, it would probably be towards the middle of the forecast period, 3 to 5 days. In the western Pacific, a 10% chance has also sprung up far out at sea, something we're looking at towards day 4 or 5, an area of interest that could develop into a system as it moves towards the southern part of the Mariana Island chain. In the Indian Ocean, and it speaks for the rest of the world as well, no areas of interest currently active, so a relatively quiet tropics, particularly when Elsa clears the scene. But for the time being it hasn't, and storm conditions are still occurring with rain amounts 3 to 5 inches, possibly up to 8 in some localized areas for places under the storm and places ahead of it. So that includes anywhere really from North Carolina right up to the coast of Maine. In the Texas area as well, lots of rainfall in that area. You can see it on the satellite imagery. A lot of the bat band is over the Gulf of Mexico now. National Hurricane Center had a 0% on that earlier today, which was interesting. Eastern Pacific looking fairly quiet. You can see just a few little thunderstorms straggling along the tropical line there. Very big dry air in the Central Pacific, just as you saw there on the screen. This is the Western Pacific right now, a few little bits and bobs blowing up, but nothing of any organized nature, and with the clearance of 7 and 8W, which were both in the South China Sea eventually, 7W forming further east, they're now gone. Neither of them got an official name. In the Indian Ocean, this is how it looks here right now, very quiet, the usual stuff here for this time of year. Some rainfall occurring over India, monsoonal in nature. So very quiet generally in the southern Indian Ocean, and this is a floater in the western Pacific, just showing you a little bit more imagery here. Very wet over the southern Philippines today, and over the Micronesian islands, the eastern islands of Micronesia. You can see big thunderstorm activity there, convection, and that could something might come out of that in around 5 days. Now here's a close-up of Tropical Storm Elsa with radar, because we're over the United States, we get a lot better, nice imagery here. And this is how the storm's been progressing, literally crossing into Virginia. The northern side of the storm appears to have the worst in terms of rainfall, a few yellows appearing there on this particular radar color scheme, but rainfall occurring all the way up to New Jersey, part of the main part of the storm, but of course that will get more and more ambiguous as the storm starts to turn post-tropical. Sea surface temperatures then in the eastern Pacific, fairly warm, around 28 degrees, pushing 30 in some areas, to the south of Oaxaca and Chiapas, Mexico. In the Atlantic, still fairly warm even after Elsa, 28 degrees generally in quite a few areas there of the Gulf and in the Caribbean Sea, and the 26 degree isotherm extending some way out over the Atlantic itself. Where Elsa's going though in that area, between the mid-Atlantic and New England, it's going to be pretty chilly, 24 degrees around roughly. The Indian Ocean, fairly warm there, pushing 30 degrees once again, and look at the Western Pacific, very warm, plus 30 degrees there, particularly around the Philippine Islands and also in the Gulf of Tonkin and off Hainan. Looking towards Japan up there as well, 26 degrees, quite easily reaching the southernmost islands, and for the Korean Peninsula there, around 24 degrees right now. Out at sea also very warm all the way up to the date line. These are the sea surface temperature anomalies. The Western Pacific generally quite above average, the Eastern Pacific generally below, especially out there, but towards the eastern area, the formation zones, it's a little bit above. In the Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico is actually a little bit cooler than average, especially after Elsa now, but generally in the Atlantic we're looking at above average temperature anomalies. On this day in 1996, we had a proper hurricane, a Category 3 Bertha, which was peaking right now north of the Greater Antilles. I think it was making its closest approach to the Dominican Republic. It was just outside of its central core. And in the Western Pacific, it wasn't absent of activity either. Category 1 Typhoon Dan was active. It was also peaking on this day, so two storms that peaked on this July 9th in 1996. So, looking towards our naming lists then, the next name in the Atlantic Ocean now is Fred. In the Eastern Pacific, we're looking out for Felicia. In the Central Pacific, we're still waiting for Hone. Over in the Western Pacific, the next name on the list there is Infa, and it's felt like a while since we had Champy already, and we had two storms that, two potential storm candidates didn't get those names. North Indian Ocean, the next name is Gulab, but I wouldn't expect anything for a few months yet until it gets its second wind. Looking towards the southern hemisphere, the Australian region, the next name is Paddy. Southwest Indian Ocean has flipped to the new list. Anna will be the first name for this upcoming season. And in the South Pacific, the next name is Cody. That's all for now. We'll have another Tropical Weather Bulletin tomorrow night.